I thought today we'll talk about something a little bit different because I do feel like it is important to do so. So you guys might have seen quite a few posts about this if you're very much paying attention to the Warhammer YouTube space, which I'm sure you all are. And it's a conversation that I think a lot of YouTubers have been having in regards to how YouTube has kind of been treating a lot of YouTube channels recently. And in particular, some of the guys that I know pretty well have been affected quite badly by this. So YouTube has been coming down quite hard on some channels, seemingly for the wrong reason. So if you don't know this channel, this is Hal's channel, the Amber King. He's a good friend of mine, really nice guy, and he got like copyright struck recently for, there's basically a few problems we need to go through, but this is the first one, and this is probably the weirdest one for me. This is how this week or last week he got struck for a few of his videos, one on Eisenhorn, a couple on Eisenhorn, and one on Caiaphas Cain. And this is a big deal on YouTube because if you're very unfamiliar on YouTube, if you get hit with like a copyright claim, you can lose your channel, and I think it's something like 3 strikes and you're out. And the weird thing about how getting struck like this is that he hasn't been hit by Games Workshop. He's been hit by this other company, which is called Mark Scan Enforcement, and they've seemingly done this on behalf of YouTube, or at least that's what they're attempting to do. It's very hard to understand what has happened here, but basically I'm guessing a lot of stuff here, but I think what happens is companies like this, they upload like a copyright source to YouTube's system, whatever. So they've uploaded a couple of books, and then they claim that these books belong to them, and then they claim channels, and then they email Games Workshop and say, hi, we've been copyright claiming people on your behalf. If you want to give us some money, we'll look after them. And I think that's what's happening here, because of course this is by no means all of Black Library's roster, so they've only hit for like a few books, and I think it's quite notable that they've hit Eisenhorn and Caiaphas Cain, because these of course are very kind of introductory novels for 40k typically, and yeah, I guess that's where you'd start if you want to do this. But I think it's the kind of thing that oh, is the camera stuttering for others? Was it just you? Ooh, it looks fine on my end, but I don't know, and maybe my internet. Ooh, I apologize. Chat, let me know if that's still a problem. Anyway, but the reason I think it's important to talk about this kind of thing is because, like, I think like this kind of thing, Hal's been very unlucky here to have been hit. I don't think he's done anything wrong. So if you've never watched his channel, you should do so. It's very good. But his channel is he does do readings from the books. But I think the videos that got struck, I was speaking to him about it the other day, and there's something like 90% his own words, his own thoughts on the books, his own discussion of the plot, etc. So it's very much not just a reading out of the novel, which would be over the line, to be entirely fair. But that's obviously not what's happened in this case. They've just kind of struck him because he has any passage from any novel. And of course, if you've watched my channel at all, you'll have probably noticed there are times when I do readings of the novels. And like, yeah, there's obviously some sort of, there's a very loose kind of doctrine in terms of how you can approach copyrighted material on YouTube, where things must fit the fair use criteria, is what they call it. And oh, hang on, it's a bit low res and stuff. Oh, what's going on there? We'll fix that in a sec. Anyway, yeah. So I think what's happened here is that. So the reason I think it's important to talk about is because I think ultimately this kind of thing will come for all channels, and I think quite frankly I've probably just been lucky so far in that I haven't been hit by any YouTube thing or anything like that so far, which, to clarify, I haven't. My channel so far has had no warnings or copyright things, but I think it's basically a matter of time, because if they're hitting Amber King, they're probably going to come for all of us at some point or another. And there's also other channels that have been hit also. So you probably saw the Remembrances video, if you haven't, on YouTube. He had a whole thing where he got demonetized in December, and this was a very different type of situation. But again, sort of the commonality between these events is YouTube's kind of faceless nature, like the way you can't really contact anyone at YouTube outside of tweeting them. They're very hard to get a hold of. And in that instance, they demonetized his channel for the claim that it was like low effort content or something is what it was called. And he did a whole video on it, which you should check out. And in that, the guidelines for what counts as low effort content, again, is very broad, where it was things like, do you post very often? Do you post like formulaic content? And like formulaic content is very general. Like, you know, like what I do is formulaic in a way. I have the same introductory style, or I read the same books in the same way, or however it's going to work. If I do a live stream, I'll start the live stream, I'll have a problem with my audio, then I'll start live streaming, I'll have a problem with my camera, and then we fix that, and then we get into the live stream. It's the same formula every time. But like, yes, it's such a weird thing, and I think it's really important that I do sort of say something in support of these kind of guys, because at some point I assume it will come for me as well. And not to mention, of course, that I do know these guys quite well, and they are genuinely nice people. So I think that if you can give some support to Amber King, do so at this point in time. And he's not the only person as well. A bunch of people have been hit, and I don't know all of them, but I think it's important to remember that for some reason YouTube has been hitting them. And the biggest problem that I think everyone has is that it's very, you can't speak to anyone on YouTube. Like Amber King is at the moment, you can see on his channel, he's kind of in this like middle process where this company has struck him for using copyrighted materials, and then he kind of appeals it, and then they have to now prove that they have the permission to use the copyright. And I was having a look online at this company and seeing like if they're legitimate, because of course this is the kind of thing people do scam over. It's like a well-known thing on YouTube where this isn't just like a Warhammer thing, but just generally where people will claim to have a certain copyright, and then they'll copyright strike channels, because in the meantime that money gets assigned to you. And even if the YouTuber can eventually prove that they have the rights, they lose revenue, or the video dies, or whatever it's going to be, and or they'll like blackmail them to get them to take their video down. So it's a well-known thing that people, yeah, this is kind of a scam thing. So to clarify, I don't know if this is a scam company, but the way it's behaved has been sort of weird, and the fact that it's had, like, Amber King has reached out to Games Workshop, I do know that, and as far as I know, they haven't admitted to working with this company at all. So so far it looks like, yeah, it's all a bit bizarre. And like if it was the case, hypothetically, that Games Workshop were unhappy with people doing readings, etc., it's very easy to stop that. They just have to send some emails and be like, hey, don't do this, and if you do it again, we'll copyright strike you. That would be more than enough to put the fear of God into any YouTuber, because it doesn't take a lot for YouTube to delete your channel. It does, yeah, after a few strikes, you're basically gone, which is a real shame. So yeah, it's a bit of a shit situation. I don't know if any of you guys have any kind of experience with this stuff, but if you do, please do, yeah, mention it to Amber King, because I think this is all sort of new for a lot of us as well. Like, I don't think people have really dealt with this kind of thing before, but it's also such a shame because this is all sort of happening, I guess, in response to like AI YouTube channels kind of, you know, taking off. You'll have noticed that like Amber King, he recently did a video on the Horus Heresy, and it's a really good video. You know, it's almost 3 hours long, and it breaks down the entire heresy, and that's a fucking hard thing to do. I know it sounds like, you know, YouTube, by no means is YouTubing the hardest job in the world, but that is a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. Like, Amber King's the only person that posts less than me, I think, and there's a reason for that. This is a lot of things you have to read and write and put it down. And I saw an AI version of the Horus Heresy summary the other day, and it had, I think, like, it came out at the same time as Amber King's roughly, and it has about 10 times the views, and it's an AI summary of the heresy that gets loads of stuff wrong because it's an AI summary, and that is just crap. But for some reason the AI version gets pushed really hard. That channel, I believe, has had no strikes or anything whatsoever, but Amber King, who does actually a lot of work to come up with a script explaining the entire Horus Heresy, that gets fucking panned because YouTube decides to hit him with all this stuff. So it's a real shit one. So yeah, definitely, if you haven't checked out his channel, do, but also watch that video, give it some love. If you've watched it, watch it again. It does really help out the channel. And yeah, it's a real shit one that the YouTube kind of just pushes all of this AI crap. And yeah, it's one of those things, like the AI stuff, like everybody, I have sort of a weird relationship with it. There's obviously going to be lots of ways it is all just going to start interacting with our lives, and there's always that stuff where it's like, well, how much do you want to stand up against progress? Things are going to change, etc. And I can appreciate some of that, I really can. But like from my point of view, when it comes to the lore, the big thing is, if people aren't reading the books and they're just having an AI summarize the heresy, like, I actually do hope to do a video on this Horus Heresy YouTube video, because it's just so wonderfully shit in how it just invents new lore. Because of course the AI, if you've never used the AI can't like read. It can't read and analyze. It like approximates what the lore looks like. So it like invents all of these scenes that don't happen in the heresy, which is amazing. But yeah, of course, no one watching the video is going to notice, because typically that's a video targeted at beginners. So it's a real shame. But I actually thought, I don't know if you guys ever saw this, but there's a channel called H Bomber Guy. He did a video like a couple of years ago. We was, you know, going after these channels that like copy other channel stuff. I thought of doing something in a similar vein, where I was just kind of like going to tear apart these AI YouTube videos where they just obviously are using AI. Because there's certain mistakes people make when they do use the AI stuff, which is kind of funny. Because on the one hand, like, I do my lore live, so I can't come down too hard on anybody who misspeaks or maybe misremembers one line, you know, that kind of thing. Okay, that's fine. But there are certain mistakes that you could only make if you had an AI read the lore for you, because you just wouldn't know fundamental things about the story. Or you wouldn't, you know, they completely like botched the entire fight of Horus versus the Emperor, which is just not something you wouldn't, if you read the Heresy, you wouldn't misremember the Emperor's fight versus Horus. That's obviously a big thing that stick in your mind. So I think that it's, yeah, there's certain things that are very telling when someone really hasn't read the book, and the AI stuff, obviously, yeah, it's just a business to them. Dairy, thank you so much. Some Warhammer YouTubers are accepting woke and leftist ideas, making it Wokehammer, and Pontius is the true master. He stays true to Warhammer. I haven't checked out his stuff, but I've had a lot of comments on it, and I'll have to watch it at some point. I don't know so much about where people with the woke stuff and that kind of thing. It depends what you're talking about and why, right? Like, I have nothing against a lot of like people want to have like gay characters or progressive characters ideas in Warhammer 40k. That's absolutely fine. But where I do have a thing is that where people start going into this realm of pretending that Warhammer lore canon isn't a thing and it doesn't exist, I end up just rolling my eyes, because that is just kind of, it's not even like woke or anything like that. It's just sort of weird. Like, how are you making so many Warhammer videos if you're pretending that Warhammer canon doesn't matter? The only reason Warhammer 40k is a thing is because the canon is so well known and respected. Oh, sorry, I've still got a blocked nose, so I can't really breathe properly. But yes, like I do really believe that all of these YouTubers that sort of try to be, it's kind of like edgy, I guess, where they start saying that like there's no such thing as Warhammer canon. I kind of just think that's a bit, you're just kind of, yeah, you're just trying to get a reaction, I guess. Free automatic singer, I don't know who that is, I'm afraid. Don't get me started on AI music, but things like the AI music and that kind of thing, again, like, it's one of those things where, like, I guess it's interesting because I'm not a musician, so I don't have as much of a perspective on this, so I don't like to speak about things where I really don't have an opinion on it. Like, the lore thing for me is quite easy to talk about, because if you use an AI to summarize a book and the AI does it wrong, that's very obvious to me if I have read that book. But like the music stuff, like it's kind of tough to know where to draw the line. Do you know what I mean? But of course, a lot of musicians, understandably, are pretty annoyed by this, and I do think that YouTube should make it very clear when things are AI generated and when they're not. Do you know what I mean? Warhammer has many cannons. No, it doesn't. It has one cannon. The Warhammer canon is pretty well guarded, generally speaking. And that doesn't mean that things don't get retconned. Of course they do, but generally speaking, it is something that people like to stay relatively structured. If the Warhammer canon was something that was incredibly fluid, it changed all the time. And obviously it has changed a lot since the beginning, but that doesn't mean that it changes sort of on a whim. Hi, I was watching something explaining small things about Primarchs, and I saw that the lion never looked the Emperor in his eyes. Is that true? If yes, why? You are a lion guy. Yes, that is mentioned in the Lion's Primarch novel, that he never looked the Emperor in the eyes. He also sees the Emperor wearing like emerald green armor, because of course when the Emperor appears to them, the psychic impression he wants to put into their mind is that of just a warrior king. That's how he wants all his sons to see him. And because the lion loves green, he assumes a warrior king would wear emerald green armor. So that's how it happens. I've always wondered, therefore, what the lion thinks, for example, when he sees depictions of the Emperor when he's wearing gold. Does he think they got the coloring wrong? Does he think that that's just like a mistake? I've always wondered that. Tim Sweeney will be very mad that you said companies like YouTube should disclose what's AI generated. Who is Tim Sweeney? Is that an AI? Is that an AI man? Yes. Epic Games boss. Oh, interesting. Was this the company today? There was a company today, like Games Workshop have announced the other day. This is actually really interesting. So Games Workshop announced the other day that they're not going to use any AI stuff when it comes to Warhammer. And I think that is very smart because, of course, the Warhammer art, one of the, you know, like I say, Warhammer 40k is only so big because the lore is so popular. Like when I say that, like Warhammer 40k by no means has the best game system out there. Space Marine 2, like we love Space Marine 2 because the lore is so good, but it is by no means the best shooter game out there. And like then if you look at even Warhammer models, like Games Workshop's 40k models aren't even the best like models that they do, let alone the best models out there. But the reason 40k dominates and just completely demolishes every other IP that attempts to approach it is because the lore is so popular. And again, when it comes to the AI stuff, Games Workshop have to respect the idea that John Blanche's work and, you know, the work of these incredible artists that did so much for the 40k community over the years, that is one of the reasons Warhammer 40k lore is so large. And if they were to lean too much into AI, they would destroy a lot of the, like, you know, goodwill that they have, because ultimately they wouldn't have a company without people like him. Are you watching the new Night of the Seven Kingdoms? If not, it's so good. So I tell you what, yeah, I did watch that the other day with my wife, the first 3 episodes. We liked it, man. I thought it was really good. I like the kid is great in it, very likable, and I like that. I can't remember the name of the actor, but the guy that plays Dunk, yeah, he's like a rugby player. He's like an Irish rugby player. He's fucking brilliant, and yeah, they're a very likable duo. Thank you for the super chats, guys. I can't stress enough. That's kind. Endless Taverns and Automatic Singer always disclosed AI use. Yeah, so I have less of an issue when people do that. I really don't mind. I even don't really mind so much the lore channels that use AI. I just think, like, what annoys me, I guess, is that, like, for example, when it comes to the AI lore stuff, what annoys me is, you have these channels that don't disclose their AI, and they are very obviously AI to anybody who's read the books. But the other thing is, you have these AI channels that are using an AI voice, they're using AI images, but then they insist that they do so much work to write their scripts. And you're like, come on. Like, how does anyone believe this? Like, if you're looking at a channel that has an AI voice, is using AI art, but you don't believe that they're using an AI to write the script, like, how naive do you have to be? Of course they're using an AI to write the script. That's the main thing you'd use the AI for. And it's just sort of absurd to me that people buy that kind of thing. And, like, I do have sort of less of an issue, I guess, with people who are, like, honest about it, and they're just like, look, what I do is I put the wiki in and I just generate an answer and I publish it up, and if you like that, this will be good for you. And I guess weirdly the music, yeah, I don't know, I don't want to say too much on it because I'm not a musician, so I don't have like a you know, informed opinion here how musicians feel, but to be fair to the channels that do make it very clear that this is AI music and that's why they're doing it, I have a lot more respect for. Got into Warhammer 40k a few years ago, and I found your videos to be highly informative. Thank you and keep it up. Thank you, Captain Obvious. I appreciate that. They're very kind. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I said, I've been a bit ill recently, but I have a lot of stuff going. It's also been a bit of a weird time because one of the things about this Games Workshop, not Games Workshop, I should say, this company who are striking things, pretending to do it already saying they're doing it on behalf of Games Workshop, is that some of the stuff I have got planned to come out does have quite a bit of readings in it. And so I was like, oh, okay. Like, is this a bad time to be doing this? Should I wait? Should I see if things calm down, etc.? So we will see. Like, there's some of the stuff from Carrying Lord of the Imperium is just so good. So I wanted to do that, but yeah, it doesn't. Someone AI'd the last Beckwing book, so we got the King in Yellow. Well, the thing is, like, stuff like that could actually be quite funny, and I would have no issue with that. Like, if somebody used the AI to, I don't know how you do this, but like have it like write guess what the ending of the last book will be. that kind of thing would be quite interesting, because you could then theorize how correct it would be, or you could be like, have it write the story of the next Primarch to return, or something like that. That could be genuinely entertaining stuff. And obviously, there's a lot of memes and that kind of thing, which are quite good. There's ways people use, you can take an image and have it animate the image and that kind of thing. I don't really think that's taking away from artists so much, as far as I know. So there's a lot of things where I'm like, okay, there's definitely ways in which the AI is quite interesting. But there's like, I guess the main thing I have is the deception, right? The deception is the big problem I have. So like, there's this channel that's pretending to be real and saying it's real, and it's very obviously AI, to the degree that it has another channel with different voices, and people are giving money to this channel. They're donating money because they believe it's real. And that is just deception. You're having an AI write a script and tricking people into giving you money. That's just a bad thing. And to me, like on the surface, at least, that separates itself. Oh, sorry, the alarm. I forgot the alarm. But to me, if you are deceptively getting people to give you money, that separates what you do from what like some of these AI music channels do, where they're like, hey, I created a fun song based around the story of Garvey or Loken, whatever it's going to be. That's true. AI YouTube channels can't live stream. That is true. Sometimes I did think about asking, like emailing some of them and ask, because like there's some that pretend that they are real, but I've got proof that they haven't now. I'm of the opinion that platforms need to make tags that for that, so as a consumer you can filter it out if you so choose. I mean, the first thing think they need to do, and in terms of like what the Remembrancer got struck for, and I think he got struck for kind of unfairly, but I think the idea is that they're trying to strike low effort content, and I don't understand how these AI YouTube channels are not getting struck. And also the way things get struck is really weird. So one of the things that has happened to my channel, it's not a big deal, but it's, it's an annoyance, is sometimes people will like download a video and then they upload it to their channel. And YouTube will give me a notification sometimes when this happens. And I can put in a request to have YouTube take that video down. But for some reason, when I do that, that doesn't delete the channel. And there are some channels out there that, like, there's this one that was called the Sand Scrolls, right? And like it had a whole bunch of my videos just uploaded with a filter over the top. And I've taken down like probably like 20 videos from that channel, and it's still up. Like, how is that channel still up? But other channels that get like 3 strikes are going out. Like, I don't really know what the system is here. Like, their videos are a 1-for-1 copy of mine. Obviously that's not okay. And I think, quite frankly, any YouTube channel that starts and immediately posts a new video, like, or like 5 videos in a week, I mean, it's just not, you just can't do that. I've always had a thing generally with like, anytime a YouTuber posts like a video summarizing a Primarch story every week, like the entire Primarch story, I always look at that a little bit like, how have you done that? Because, like, especially a lot of these YouTubers are supposedly quite new to Warhammer, and they're like, oh, next week we're going to cover Corvus Corax. And I'm like, how are you going to cover Corvus Corax in a week? It doesn't make any sense. Like, how are you going to read all of the books and write a script and edit it and record it? That's a lot of work. Like, doesn't really make sense. So that kind of, it's always been a bit weird. Which GW writer do you hate the most, and why is it Gav Thorpe? So Gav Thorpe I don't hate. I think that he does have a lot of duds. So some of the Dark Angels books that he wrote, I don't think there are many Dark Angels fans that really miss his writing. I think Unforgiven was very good, but the other ones he's written were just not very great. The Eldar books, I've only read the Path of the Warrior, but I guess not reading the other 2 is probably a sign of that. But he can write some good stuff. I even thought that the Kaikar's Oath was very good, and I think that he can be depended on to write a decent kind of Space Marine story. So I don't hate Gav Thorpe. I mean, Nick Kime is the other one, and Darius Hinks are the other ones that I kind of go, oh, okay, because when Darius Hinks, his Mephiston books are so over the top. They're just so kind of, Mephiston is, he's just sort of he's too, I mean, in the most obvious sense, he's too OP, but it's just kind of, Mephiston is not an interesting character to me because he just has no real weakness that it seems obvious through the page. Like, yes, there's the Black Angel, but at the end of the day, he's Mephiston, so nothing's ever going to actually happen. But the other one is the Leviathan book. Again, it's just, I didn't really feel like that was a book that did a lot of justice for the Ultramarines. And like the Ultramarines should be the big Tyranid killers of the galaxy. They've been involved in every Tyrannic war. They have Tyrannic war veterans. They've got a Primarch. They should be the best Tyranid killers, and they were just kind of a bit crap. So there's that. And then Nick Heim. Nick Heim I think he's pretty well suited to the job that he has now. In terms of he's quite a good like showrunner for Warhammer or whatever you call it, because Nick Heim knows cool Warhammer. He knows how to create a cool Warhammer idea. Like if you've read the Salamanders trilogy, you'll know what I mean, where he can create some really cool ideas. The Black Dragons, the traitorous salamanders, the salamanders from the heresy. Like these kind of ideas are so cool and so interesting, but then he's not very good at finishing those stories, and so he kind of creates, I want him to create really cool ideas and hand them over to other writers to write, because he kind of knows Warhammer. He knows how to come up with a cool concept. That's the word I'm looking for, but he's not very good at actually writing the story. But yeah, the salamanders are popular because they have so many cool aspects to them, but they're actually not well written, to be honest with you. Sorry. Chris Wray is one of the best authors. Definitely Chris Wray. Any Chris Wray book I'm be pretty happy with, to be honest. What I love about the Eldar is that you can write perspectives and relationships that you normally can't write about, and I think they should lean into that with the Eldar going forward. Interesting. Love for Void Guard as well. Yes, I was like, I spoke about this before on the channel. I was like very happily surprised, I think, to see that Voice Guard did so well in the books of last year, and I think that's a huge testament to Mike Brooks's kind of Xenos writing and how he can really make like a lot of writing super engaging for factions that maybe otherwise don't have it. I think that he's done a lot for Orcs. I think that Brutal Cunning, like people normally don't care about factions that are not connected to that central Primarch Emperor storyline, and just creating great compelling Xenos characters is tough. And Corsairs, hopefully that's the future for them. At the very, that book is very much setting up a future novel, because they still need to have their reckoning against the craft world. And of course, the Corsairs are still out there just trying to cement their place as a proper faction in the setting, really. Do you know any books as fun to read as Master of Mankind? Every sentence is high impact, and Diocletian's roast of Zephon was just too funny. AI is for cybernetic kibbles. Kibbles. So Master of Mankind, I mean, the obvious sequel to that is Carrion, Lord of the Imperium, which is an Era of Ruin. The final book of the Heresy is an anthology, and that's the final book of the final book. So that's definitely his kind of sequel to Master of Mankind. And when I say sequel, I mean it dives a lot more into kind of the custodian Sister of Silence relationship. It dives much more into kind of the custodians, or at least Diocletian, criticizing or at least contemplating their relationship with the Emperor. And I think you get much more, like, for example, an obvious question that fans had for a long time is that how do the custodians kind of view the Emperor, in terms of there is this coincidental relationship between the custodians and the Emperor, where the custodians in the presence of the Master of Mankind are immortal, and those that aren't in the presence of the Master of Mankind supposedly can slow over time, and that's why the companions in theory might live forever. Now Diocletian directly references this and asks, is this to guarantee our loyalty? Now, as far as we know, outside of that one time, the custodians are eternally loyal to the Emperor and can't turn against him. But maybe there is some doubt here, and that's some fun wiggle room to have. Boaz, thank you so much. Outside of the Retributors from Astartes, nice. Have you ever heard of a fan-made lore being adopted by Games Workshop? There are some quality fan-made audiobooks out there. So, great question. Great question. Yeah. So, like, Astartes is definitely the best example. Retributors are the best example. So there have been some really fun things. Games Workshop have done some people are solid. There was a young lad who got immortalized as a Space Wolf character, and he appears in the codexes. There was I think now what's a good example? I'm sure I'm missing some. Oh, I think ADB included his wife's chapter. I can't remember what the name of it was, but I think he included his wife's chapter in one of the books. If anyone remembers the name of that chapter, put it in chat. Yeah, there's definitely going to be some stuff like that. I think what's kind of fun, well, to be fair, actually, Brutal Cunning is also another really good example, I guess, where Mike Brooks's Uftak character was his character from, I don't know if it was Necromunda, but yeah, it was just some sort of campaign he used to play with his mates. And so he wrote Uftak's story based off of his own campaigns and the background he'd already written for it. And then that is now the official kind of there's official Warhammer lore, and it's got its own model, which is pretty crazy for your fan fiction to become actual fiction and then get its own model. It's kind of nuts. Do you think the Scouring series would explain what happened with Gilliman and Omegon? Definitely. Yeah, we'll definitely get to that. I don't know exactly when that will happen, but I would guess it won't be too long into the future. The whole timeline of the Scouring is very much up in the air, so it could be not for a while, but I want to guess it will be relatively quick, probably first 10 books. Maybe that's too optimistic. How custodians become eyes of the Emperor as spies if they're all twice as tall as normies? Wouldn't it be pretty obvious to everyone they're custodians? Yes, great question. It's kind of funny that the custodians, because custodian law is quite like a new thing. We didn't have too much custodian law for a very, very long time. And the reason that's quite funny is because where we did see them, stealth was a pretty common aspect of them. Because, of course, you have the Blood Games, and then you have the Eyes of the Emperor law. And these are the two times we pretty much see custodians in the lore, really, most of the time, because for most of 40k's history, they're just in the Imperial Palace, as far as we know. And so the fact that they're obsessed with stealth, yes, does raise the question, how did they get away with this, given that they're giant demigod warriors? And in terms of the Eyes of the Emperor, I think it's more about them cultivating networks of spies, so they don't do too much infiltrating themselves, but perhaps they have some sort of like Alpha Legion type shenanigans where they can, in theory, make themselves a little bit smaller. And so they can kind of, yes, slink in. But each custodian is unique. Perhaps some of them have some sort of psychic, sorry, not psychic, but like ability to help them be more stealthy. Who knows? Yes, very good question. The Shadow Wolves, is that the name of his wife's chapter? Yeah. I wish to have skills to make what I want. I don't. I try to practice, but without consistency, I swear that neurodivergence is latent psychery and makes your brain constantly feels echoes of the warp. Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. I mean, I have ADHD, so I struggle with a lot of stuff. So I have some sympathy there, definitely. Sorry, I'm French. Do you know the YouTube channel? You don't have to be sorry you're French, mate. It's fine. Do you know the YouTube channel called Indomitus, which for a French speaker is absolutely astonishing for Warhammer 40k lore? If not, I can recommend more to see afterwards. I haven't heard of that one, but I occasionally they do come up for me, like YouTube channels of like other languages, and it's pretty cool to see. Do you think the faith of the people of Baal empowered the soul of Sanguinius, created the Sanguinor like the Star Child? Great question. So this question is sort of posited in the book Darkness in the Blood, which is set after Devastation of Baal, but before the last Mephiston book. And in that book, we sort of basically there's two ideas. So we do know that on the planet, in the Baal system, before humanity colonized it, there were other aliens that lived there, Xenos, but lived there long before humanity, and they apparently worshipped angels. There was a golden angel and a black angel. So the mythology of the golden angel and the black angel has always been in that system. So that leaves us with two options, really. One is that they create this Xenos race, for example, created their belief in their faith, created the Golden Angel and the Black Angel, and Sanguinius arriving on Baal Secundus, Baal Secundus? Yeah, I think Baal Secundus, meant that he was chosen by these aspects to embody them, and that's where like the Black Rage, for example, really comes from, and that's why he got wings, etc. But the other option is that because the warp is eternal, the Sanguinius was such a potent figure with so much love and faith within him because of the Imperial cult, that created these two embodiments in the warp, which then echoed throughout time, which is why the Xenos race in the past worshipped the Golden Angel and the Black Angel, because the warp is eternal. So it has to be one of the two ways around, and we don't know which. But that does tell us that ultimately there is something more to the Sanguinor than what was originally known. So we know how the Sanguinor was created. We know who it was originally. I did a video on this on the channel if you never watched it. And we know why he became the Sanguinor. We know kind of the ritual that turned a sanguinary guard into the Sanguinor. But to this day, we don't know exactly why he changed from becoming that to becoming the Sanguinor. So it's just the sheer faith in the Sanguinius. Eventually, kind of after Sanguinius died, he took on this other kind of golden aspect, but he actually gains wings at the end of the book Ruinstorm. So we see him sort of change. It's a fascinating story because, to sum up, basically when Sanguinius was the emperor in Imperium Secundus, he needed to have a herald because that's the thing. He had to have a herald, and Sanguinius couldn't know who the identity of the herald is. So the Sanguinary Guard do this little ritual where it comes down to these two Sanguinary Guard, and they both, one of them is killed, and one of them becomes the Sanguinor, and he becomes the herald of Sanguinius. And even though that's just kind of like a silly ritual that they've done, that one of them is now just known as the herald of Sanguinius, and it's this faceless man, he, after that point, has like kind of close to superhuman abilities, and it's pretty well written in the book. It's one of my favorite aspects of that book, Ruinstorm, because the Herald of Sanguinius just pops up in the book. Like when Sanguinius in the novel falls to the Black Rage, all of a sudden the Sanguinor is there. He's just in front of Sanguinius, and he just like catches Sanguinius's fist and stands up to him. Or when Sanguinius is fighting, if things look a little bit like they're erring a little bit, all of a sudden the Herald of Sanguinius just pops up, and he's just there fighting. And at the end of the book, when the Lion, Guilliman, and Sanguinius, when they fight on Davin, because they have to do, they know that the way to Terra is through Davin. The Lion discovers this. When they are on Davin, the Sanguinor sacrifices himself to prevent the demons from attacking them, and he is consumed in the process. But before he dies, Sanguinius sees him grow wings, and that is the birth of, he kind of transitions into something different. And by the time we get to 40k, he's something else entirely. If capitalism wasn't a thing, is there a satisfying way the 40k story can come to an end? And what are the main things you'd like to see in an ending? Oh, it's a great question. I think that one of the things that I'm always championing Games Workshop to do, not that they listen, but one of the things I love them to do is to remember all of the MacGuffins that they create and leave in the setting. There are so many books that, like, I've reviewed a lot of books on this channel, and I try to review some of the smaller books sometimes that come out that maybe people won't read, but I think they're interesting. And often the thing that is interesting is a cool character or a cool MacGuffin introduced in that book that could be useful in the future. A weapon that would give the Imperium a chance against the Tyranids or the Necrons, or something that could play a role in the return of the Emperor. But then the truth is, most of the time, Games Workshop forgets about these MacGuffins. The book doesn't sell very well, and it just never comes up again. And probably the biggest example of this is the Dawn of Fire series, where the Dawn of Fire series got cancelled because it wasn't very popular. But to be fair to the series, it does give you a kind of a cool development for a few characters. So you have the Red Corsair Herrick, you have the new Imperial Saint Kesh, and you have this new kind of like Chaos Sorcerer Saint character called Yang. And they're all quite interesting characters to have built up over many books, and now Games Workshop sort of forgets about them. So it's always a shame. Guns for Bullets. Us Tau readers need Shazo case. Yeah, that would be so good. I think that it's definitely the biggest kind of bullet in the Tau gun. You know, it's the thing that if Games Workshop really wanted to make Tau a big faction, a super exciting faction, you would release a case novel, you'd release a case model. If you're not familiar, one of the first videos I ever did on this channel years ago was about Case, or at least the students of Pure Tide, and Case is probably the most interesting. He was always distant from Farsight and Shadowsun, which is why you normally just see those two referenced. But he doesn't practice Kion or Monat Kion or Monka so much, but he focuses on Monat, which is like the way of the lone warrior, and he is thought to be the smartest of the students of Pure Tide, and he was kept in like this stasis state for I think 100 years, but he was awake for those 100 years. So he's basically mad at this point. And in the book, War of Secrets, we see him kind of go on this kind of rampage where he takes out on like an entire successor chapter of Dark Angels in a ghost key or battle suit, and he actually does pretty well. And in a book that otherwise kind of sucked, that was actually a really cool scene. So awesome. But after that, he escapes, but he does get a reference in one of the later Tau codexes, so I assume he's been kind of recaptured and brought back into the fold. But I would see it. Josh, Yawn of Fire, nice, yeah, true. I would love to see an Alpha Legion versus Eyes of the Emperor book. Yes, I mean, in theory, it's all going on. And yes, they very much have similar ways of operating there. And of course, the Alpha Legion and the Custodians do have a history, because the Alfarius Primarch novel does, at least if you believe it, it does tell us that Alfarius was the first person to do a blood game in the Imperium, which is pretty cool. So that's where the idea came from. Boaz, thank you so much. Unpopular opinion, I like how the lore has developed over the years. 40k was hopeless and pretty nihilistic for the longest time. These days, it's nice to see rays of hope and excitement in what comes next. Yeah, I totally agree. I did a stream in Enormous where I talked about, like, is the Imperium doomed? And I don't think the answer is. And like, for most of 40k's history, I think, yeah, you're exactly right. It very much was that. And if you spoke to 40k fans, they'd often say things like 40k is a setting and not a story. They'd say things like, the point of 40k is the rage against the dying of the light. And it's not that those aspects are completely gone. Of course, they still stick around. And there are some enemies the Imperium has in which we can't imagine how the Imperium would be victorious. But there are so many open questions in 40k. I don't think you can confidently say the Imperium has literally no hope. We don't know what happens when the hive mind approaches the Emperor. They're both like colossal god type beings. Could the Emperor overpower it? I don't know. I can't say for sure that he could. Perhaps it would make no impact at all. But the idea that we could be so confident that the hive mind would win, it's open to, we just have no idea. It's never been written. And likewise, for example, I do think 40k is written better when the Imperium has some chance. And that's why, like the last book of the Dawn of Fire, Yawn of Fire, Silent King, I actually think they did a pretty good job where you have the Necrons, and the Necrons are definitely so much better than humanity. There's really no contest when they have a void battle. The Necrons just tear humanity apart. It's an embarrassment, right? There's just no chance humanity can survive. But there are these little glimmers humanity has in the book. Humanity can overwhelm Necron technology with their technology, and they can bring ships down. Guilliman is definitely a threat to the Necrons. Even the Silent King doesn't face Guilliman for a little while, and the Space Marine Kato Takari is theorizing that a lot of the Necron nobility are scared of Guilliman and don't want to fight him, and even the Blade of the Emperor might have the capability to permanently kill the Silent King. So there's a lot out there for the Imperium to do, and so it's, I think that's a good thing, right? Like, it's definitely the case that the Imperium's on the back foot, but it's more interesting if humanity has a hope, because I mean, Games Workshop did the humanity is doomed, everyone's going to die for a long time, and no one bought Warhammer. They were kind of done with it. I'm reading Hereticus and beefing with ADB because why did he heavily imply an over 180-year-old Eisenhorn hooking up with 400-year-old Dr. Cresia Burstchild just uncalled for? I think you mean Damnit for Hereticus, mate. But yeah, I mean, Eisenhorn most of the time is kind of he's kind of like as close as you get to like 40k's cool guy. Because he does have like romances and stuff like that, which are typically quite absent from 40k novels, notably if you've read a lot of them. And in addition to that, he's kind of like, he doesn't smile, and he wins through his kind of sheer grit and respect from his retinue. And so, like, yeah, he's normally the 40k's cool guy, but so I'm all right with him hooking up with the odd doctor. But you also get, is it Kiss? She hooks up with a doctor as well in Ravener. So there you go. Maybe it's just a recurring theme. I like your positive outlook on GW's future, as I put in 100k of my retirement into GW stock slow. Oh, mate, we should form a group where like we'll start investing in GW, and yeah, I mean, weirdly, we all have sort of insider trading knowledge, right? Like we all know when Games Workshop stock's about to rise. Like now would be like, this is not official financial advice. For legal purposes, I have no legal understanding, but I times like these, I'm tempted to invest in Games Workshop because you're about to get 2 Warhammer video games. One or both of them have the chance to kind of pop off, which would be big for Games Workshop stock. And furthermore, we've got 11th edition coming, which is always going to cause a big influx of people into the hobby. So that's a pretty big deal. And then you've got the Amazon TV show, which has been delayed and forgot about. So in theory, that would be a big deal. I think if they do a Mark 7 kit for the Scouring that you could use alongside Heresy models, that would probably become the best-selling Warhammer kit of all time. So yeah, it weirdly now is a time I would consider investing, but again, I have no understanding of financial markets, so please don't trust that. Does 40k reference any philosophers? Funny thing is, it's very weird. So one of the things that happens quite a lot in 40k novels is at the start of a chapter you'll have a little quote, and a lot of these quotes are from M2. So they'll quote Shakespeare, or they'll quote, you know, Churchill, or whoever it will be, and then they'll put from this person, M2. And so they have a lot of 40k books do have philosophical quotes at the start of chapters, etc., because Games Workshop want to create the impression that little bits of technology, little bits of knowledge have survived from the dark age of technology, and various quotes make it through and that kind of thing. Caiaphas Cain is 40k's ladies man. That's true. Yeah. A bit late to the chat. If it hasn't happened, can we get a shout out to Grim Dark Narrator? Yes. So I was less from. I don't know him personally, I should say, but yes, he's another one where I'm not particularly familiar with his situation, so I don't know exactly what's happened there. But yes, again, I think it's the same company that has struck Amber King, and they, as far as I'm aware, have no right to do this because they are not Games Workshop, and I don't believe Games Workshop have authorized this action. So I don't really know how they are able to do this. I don't like that. Seems crazy to me that you can just say you own or have the rights to Warhammer property and do that. It definitely doesn't feel legit for a couple of reasons. So like I say, Amber King did contact Games Workshop to try and find out if this is legit, and they were kind of cagey in their answer, but they haven't confirmed that they have. And furthermore, this company has only struck like a few novels. Like obviously, like I haven't been hit at all because I mainly cover the Heresy, and none of the Heresy novels have been covered at all as far as I know. But if they do that, then I presume I would get hit as well. So I don't really know how they're able to delete his channel or cause his channel to be deleted without being able to prove all this stuff. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe his challenge was a little bit different to the Amber Kings, etc. But for some reason, it seems incredibly unfair. And I think the big problem where I have sympathy with him, I think Anthony is his name. I think that's right. I think the big sympathy I have as well is that you can't talk to anybody at YouTube. There's no like help desk or something, or like you Google Meets you can have with them, which is just kind of nuts. Oh, I think my internet cut out for a second. I hope I stayed alive. It's the same company that struck Amber King and Remembrancer, The Vox in the Void, Justice for Grimdark Narrator. So I believe, yes. So I don't believe the Remembrancer got struck. I think there's two things that have gone on. There's this happened at the same time, so it's easy to confuse. But I do think it's different. So Amber King has been, and I don't know about Vox in the Void, but Grimdark Narrator, I think they've been struck by this company, which is saying they have the rights to Games Workshop property when I don't think they do, but yeah, I don't know. And then the other one is Remembrancer. His was different, where he got hit by YouTube's anti low effort content or something it's called, because he yeah, has formulaic content or something like that. It was incredibly vague, the wording. They really didn't give any specifics. With Remembrancer, they weren't like with Amber King, for example. You can see on his channel they were like, this video is not allowed because it's violating copyright, right? And I think they're wrong, but that's what they're saying is with Remembrancer they didn't even do that. I think they were just like, your channel's being demonetized because we don't like it, which is just awful. Yeah, Vox in the Void. I think Vox in the Void, I think they're all right now. I think I saw them post on Discord. I think they're going to be fine. Where I think they got hit by the same thing as Remembrancer. So yes, I think they're fine now. But YouTube for some reason flagged them as low effort content, which is just like a system that they have. Because like the idea, I remember when YouTube announced this system, actually, like the idea, I believe, was to go after these like drama channels and that kind of thing. You know, those channels that make a new video every day. There's like, you know, Mr. Beast is finished or whatever it's going to be. And they just made the same video every day. The idea was to hit those channels because it's considered low effort and yeah, it affects the algorithm, blah, blah, blah. But then they ended up just catching a whole host of people that were legitimately just making content. Vox is all right now. Yes, I believe he's fine. He does. If you've never watched Vox in the Void, he does like fan audiobooks and that kind of thing, which are pretty cool. Hi. When it comes to Caiaphas Cain or Gaunt stories, do they have weight on the main plot of Warhammer 40k? Not really. Occasionally, they kind of run tangentially by. Like they will sort of come by. What's some examples? So in Gaunt's Ghost, there's a story with Men of Iron where they find like a factory that makes Men of Iron, and like of course that's a big story in Warhammer because there's so few occurrences of Men of Iron. And if they hadn't shut it down, then that would have been disastrous for the Imperium. In Caiaphas Cain, they find these Tyranids that are under this ice, and in theory, those Tyranids, because they discuss in the book how those Tyranids are, I think, 5,000 years old. They've been in the ice. So, in theory, those are some of the oldest Tyranids in the galaxy. So, they have a potential galaxy impact in terms of the history of Warhammer 40k. But yeah, it's not properly expanded upon. But yeah, like Eisenhorn was sort of the same, where it wasn't didn't have a galaxy expanding impact until you get to Beckwin, where all of a sudden it just pops off. Who or what inspired you to start the channel? Was it a shot in the dark, or did you know it would get this successful? No, I mean, there's a lot of luck with YouTube and that kind of thing, so that's definitely played a big role. I think that the thing that started the channel for me was the book Saturnine. It was the first video I ever did on the channel, and I did a couple of lore videos. They didn't do well. I took a break from doing them, and I came back, and then through doing like YouTube Shorts, that gave you a lot more visibility, and then from that it took off. But yeah, it was the book Saturnine that started me doing the channel, because that book, if you I've spoken about it before on the channel, but that book kind of blew my mind the first time I read it, where it's a book that starts off quite obviously when you read it, some big plot lines. You get like the Emperor's greatest enemy. You get one of my favorite Khan moments, one of my favorite Dawn moments. You have the entire Saturnine Gambit, which is just like Space Marine porn. It's just incredible. And then you have spoiler. You have the Dark Angel showing it up at the end. You have the beginning of the Inquisition. It's just so much happens in this book that is just a lot of the heresy is dragged out. To get so much crammed into one novel it's quite a big novel, but to get so much crammed into it is very rare for 40k. And it was just like, oh, here we go. Now the loyalists are going to get their punch back. And it was just, I love that book so much. I couldn't stop talking about it with Quibster, and so then I just started the channel to get some of that out, I guess. I loved Descent of Angels when I first read it, but understand people think it's a jarring turn from the heresy plot. Yeah, I would love to know in an alternate reality how people view that book if it was outside of the heresy. If that was the Lion's Primarch novel, for example, how would people view that? But yeah, sadly, it will always be that book that people get to in the heresy where they're like, sorry, what happens to all of those characters we were just reading about? When the narrator pronounces one name 4 different ways in the same video, yes, that's normally a bit of a tell when it's, you know, Tyranids, Tyranids, and you know, yeah, that's always a bit of a tell that that's happening. Has Imperial Iterator been mentioned? Has to be AI. Yes, that one is definitely AI. In a weird way, I don't mind that one so much in the respect that, yes, you have this idea of them being AI, but they're very obviously AI. And so, yeah, I think they're, I don't know how open they're about it, but I guess because it's more obvious, it sort of annoys me less. What I guess annoys me is the fact that there is no way they're reading all of these books. And I haven't even listened to any of these because I'm pretty confident they're going to be complete crap. But I imagine, yes, they are complete crap. And there was a thing a few months ago. How was it? They hired some company to look after their copyright, and this company like copyright struck Oculus Imperia, and for using some images that they'd used or something like that, which is just crazy as a concept that you can have an AI lore channel that's just using an AI to write scripts for you, and then you have that AI lore channel then strike a real lore channel for using the same images that they have, which was just nuts. Long time lurker, first time commenter. I just want to say I love your content. My only request would be if you could leave the longer streams up instead of editing. I love to fall asleep to them. So one of the videos should be coming out like tomorrow or the day after. Is from a stream we did the other day. This is sort of an experiment where I've seen other YouTube channels do this. The Lore Keepers guys, not sorry, what they're called, Hammer King and Remembrancer. What they're called? I'm a complete mind blank here. Lore Crimes, that's the word I'm looking for. The Lore Crimes guys. So they do this. I know like other like big non-Warhammer people do this, where you record the stream and then you take it off and you edit it offline and upload it again as a video. So I'm going to test it with that and we'll see how that goes. But I may start doing that more in the future, and then I could just leave the live streams up just unlisted in the meantime, so you can listen to them. AI is an economic bubble. These tech companies are creating money cycles that require constant input without generating any profit. The bubble will burst. So yeah, I have no idea how these things work, but there's a lot of things about it that, yeah, there's some really interesting analysis because, of course, having, you know, as everyone watching this will have done, having grown up through the housing bubble and seen the signs of why the housing crisis that we saw, the housing bubble that we saw in the early 2000s, there are some similarities. And like it's in particular, it's Nvidia, isn't it, who people think are now being kind of grossly overinflated, and these actual AI companies, they've not produced anything. But it's very hard to comment on as a citizen, as a noob, because like Netflix didn't make any money for years, and that never made any sense to me, but then they all of a sudden did, and now they're very profitable or something. So yeah, I don't really know how this works, but for somehow, yeah, it looks a bit dodgy. Definitely looks, it has all the hallmarks of a bubble, but you have to be pretty confident, I guess, if you're an actual politician to put your foot down. And the worrying thing is that like, you know, like for example, the UK has some AI stuff, but we don't have any big AI companies based here. In fact, there's none really in Europe, I don't think. And so, but yet we're still heavily invested in the American market. So if they go down, we're all going down. It's one of those, which is fantastic. Nvidia feeds the AI companies, and the AI companies are driving Nvidia stock. Yeah, I mean, I was very fortunate, really. So this PC that I use, I overwent on the RAM. I went a little bit too high because there were 4 slots, so I bought double the RAM that I needed. But now RAM is like incredibly expensive, isn't it? Because it's all being bought up by AI companies or something. So fortunate, really. You want to hear a funny one? One of the powers from Power World is directly influenced by the Saturnine armor. Nocklum. I play it with my nephew. Interesting. Have they confirmed that, or is that just a thing? Oh, interesting. He's kind of adorable. I haven't played it at all, but is it good, Power World? Because I know they had a whole thing, didn't they? Oh, hang on, yeah, they had a whole thing with Pokemon, because I think Pokemon Nintendo tried to take them down. Is that right? And then I don't know what happened with that, but presumably they're still going. But it's interesting. It's cool. I was a big Pokemon fan back in the day. This is actually true. So I was a huge Pokemon fan when I was younger, probably up until like Pokemon Black. That was the era. But then what happened was I was living in Hong Kong at the time, and the Pokemon game that I bought was like Black 2, that was region locked, and that annoyed me so much. I have not played Pokemon ever since. So that was there you go. That's you spurn me. I will drop my custom. That just annoyed me so much. There was no reason for it to be region locked. It gave nothing. It just pissed me off so much. And every time I go to buy a Pokemon game, I'm like, it just bugs me. Only way they can get out of the hole is AGI, and we are not even close to that. Also, the software companies like Squarespace are in trouble, as AI can replace them quite easily. Yeah, there's definitely, like, the large language models are quite interesting. I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day who works for the British government, and he writes like briefs for politicians. And of course, he was asking about like we were talking about where it would influence people, and I was talking about the AI YouTube channels, and he was talking about how it could affect him. And there's definitely a lot of ways in which people's lives will be affected by this stuff. But yeah, I guess it's tough to know when it's just billionaires trying to insist that their products are incredibly valuable. Perry Pub, thank you so much for the gift memberships. If you got one, please thank him. But also jump into the Discord as well, where I'm all day. So check out the members' content as well. Have we talked about the King in Yellow yet? We have. This is the second alert. Don't worry. But thankfully, I don't think it was the King in Yellow who took down the Amber King. I believe his Valdor video did very well, so I don't think he'd be very happy about it. But there is, unfortunately, it seems to be entirely some sort of third-party company who's gone after him. Like we were talking about earlier, there seems to be two different issues here. There seems to be this problem of you've got this company that is saying they have the rights to Games Workshop IP, and as far as we know, they don't. And then you also have this problem of Games Workshop has this sort of flagging system for what they call inauthentic content, which hit the Remembrancer and Vox in the Void, I believe, for just like no reason. They have formulaic content, and YouTube believes that's enough justification to demonetize a channel, which is nuts. A funny thing about Games Workshop sort of announcing that they're not going to use AI products in their creation process is that Amazon have already sort of had a bit of a fuck up. I don't know if you watch this. There's a TV show for Fallout, and in the Fallout TV show, at the start of season 2, you know how they'll do like a last time on? They did a last time on Fallout, and they had an AI summarize the previous season, and the AI got it wrong. They summarized their own season incorrectly because they had an AI watch it and summarize it. But of course, the AI can't actually watch. It can only sort of approximate what happens. And so we got a bunch of details wrong, and they had to apologize and replace it with an actual human written one. And it's such a good example where that is not too much work. Like, you could have just paid a human person to do that job. And instead they just sort of, are trying to use AI wherever possible. So hopefully it bodes well for Warhammer, because that's a sign of Amazon fuck up. They won't do it again. What kind of event could lead to the birth of the Star Child for humans, Slaanesh with the Eldar, and what effect will it have on human souls, especially Chaos affected? I'm no heretic inquisitors. So the obvious answer to your question is the Dark King storyline, and the reason that's very unique is because the Dark King specifically is a chaos god that will arise from someone mortal. One born immortal will be born again, I believe is what the prophecy says. So an immortal person will become a chaos god according to the prophecy, and that is something that, as far as we know, has never happened before. There are no records suggesting that Slaanesh, Nurgle, Tzeentch, or Khorne were originally just sentient life forms of some sort and ascended. I guess it's not impossible, because we don't know the exact history of them, because they're warped beings. But so far, that's a whole new thing. And if the Dark King does ascend, then all of humanity dies, basically, in the long run. So it is said that the warp will turn to madness for millions of years. So when Slaanesh was born, the Eye of Terror was created because the warp storms just blew across the galaxy. It's created like an explosion. So Slaanesh was birthed over 10,000 years. The warp storms grew and grew and grew. And then when she was officially birthed, then all of the warp storms were quelled at once, and the explosion created the Eye of Terror and destroyed most of the Eldar civilization. Now, if humanity was to, if the Dark King was to ascend, you basically get the same idea, but it would be far quicker and much more powerful, and that would cause the warp to basically turn into madness, and where the Great Rift would probably like spill out over the entire galaxy, drowning the entire galaxy in the Immaterium, and that basically is everybody dying in the long run, because demons would be able to spawn on every single world, and there's just no coming back from that. So it would be the end, and so that's why the Emperor isn't allowed to ascend to become the Dark King, because if he did, then everyone dies. First time in your live stream, which is crazy since I'm in Scotland, quickly became my favorite lorist. Dark Tiding drunk. Thanks, Sandman. Nice, nice. I don't really game much on the channel because I suck at gaming, but I play a lot of Space Marine 2. So I am tempted to, like, I've worked so hard to get so much better at Space Marine 2. And I hope when you see my videos where I use that footage, I've been getting better, and because I get so many comments that are like, mate, you want shit at this. And I can't stress enough how hard I'm trying. The Eldar stuff is a bit shit. Zero good characters. GW fucked up with killing off the old world. At least we had Dark Blade. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, killing off the old world it definitely seems like a fuck up now because of how popular old world has become, and especially how popular like Total War Warhammer became. But at the time, like Peachy, if you've never seen the YouTube channel Peachy Tips, the podcast Jugs, he's talks about it a lot, where he was working in Games Workshop stores at the time, and I think he said something like there were periods where they wouldn't sell a single Warhammer Fantasy box for like months, and even Warhammer 40k was also struggling more at the time. But he said that like, old world was basically dead for years, and yeah, it's tough. Now it seems like a big fuck up because of how popular it is, but at the time, credit's due, fantasy seems dead to the company. If you want to get a basic understanding of how different levels of MLM/AI work, I found the book is anyone builds it, everyone dies helpful. Yeah, well, this is what's LLM, sorry, large language. Yeah, this is what's kind of crazy, is that it's sort of weird to know how to respond to things nowadays, because you can't tell when things are serious or not. Like, I saw an image of Elon Musk next to an army of robots, and I see that and I think, is that a meme or is that a threat to the working class? Like, what am I looking at here? Because like in the future, maybe like our grandkids will say, I can't believe you guys were so worried about large language models. It was obviously never going to be a threat, etc. But the truth is, right now, it's hard to be too confident either way, because like I don't know the exact level of where these robots and stuff are at. Like, I saw those robots in like that Russian display where they all like fall over, and it's like, that's funny. But at the same time, you see those little robot dogs. You know, I think China has an army of like robot dogs now, and they're saying that that's the next stage of warfare. Is that true, or is that a joke, or is that just like countries kind of showing off tech, or how does this work? It's very hard to know how we should be reacting. Like, maybe there's no threat of robots doing anything for a while. I don't know. But the funny thing is, of course, is that because abominable intelligence is such a big thing in the Warhammer 40k universe, of course, inspired by Dune, of course, stolen from Dune, like, it's kind of amazing that so many 40k fans enjoy so many obviously AI YouTube channels. It's kind of hilarious, really. Sari, 2 years Eerie struck with me. Well, I can't thank you enough, Sari. I mean, in fact, all of the mods, I know you guys do so much. It's very useful having mods, because I can't be there to settle everything. So yeah, thank you so much, and thanks so much for supporting the channel. How do you think Farsight will? How do you think Farsight will react to finding out the auxiliary species under the greater good have inadvertently created a warp entity? That's a good question. It hasn't come up in his novels. I think his novels, we're not going to find out for a little while, because his novels are set too far before that storyline. So if you haven't read the Tau books, there's sort of two, like, this is pretty common for Warhammer, but the Farsight books are set quite a long time before the current 40k plotline. So the most recent Farsight book was called, oh god, Blade of Truth. Blade of Truth, is that right? Chat, if that's wrong, correct me. And in that book is basically, for context, it is a novelization of the events of 7th edition for Warhammer 40k. So it is very, like, before, it's a long time before Primaris Marines. Ornvar, the Ethereal Supreme, is still alive in that book. He appears in the novel, and so he's dead in modern 40k. So it's set quite a long time in the past. And so the Farsight series is a series that is exploring the origins of Farsight and how he became the legend that we all know and love. But even by the most recent Farsight novel, which is book four proper novels, 5 if you include short stories. Even the most recent Farsight book hasn't really taken you to a place where Farsight is the kind of established leader of a flourishing Farsight Enclave's exiled force of the galaxy. We're getting there. We're very nearly there now. But with the next book, for example, will probably cover the death of Ornvar and the Second Damocles War and the Imperium sending assassins to kill Ornvar, Shadowsun, Farsight, etc. So the Farsight novels have almost caught up to modern 40k lore, but that does mean, for example, that the lore of Talvar being created is set in War of Secrets originally and covered later in Shadowsun's novel, which is much more modern 40k lore, referencing kind of campaigns that have taken place since 8th edition, where you have kind of 40k's big leap forward. So you're probably a couple of books away from finding that out. How will he react? I suspect he'll be more cool with it than you might imagine. He has probably got a better understanding of demons, etc., than Shadowsun does, certainly. Who knows what Case knows. But I think he'll probably be all right with it. I don't think he'll do the proper full kind of Fourth Spear expansion, super racist, let's kill everybody that isn't Tau. I don't think he'll go that route. That seems pretty out of character for him, unless he falls the corn again. So I don't think that will happen. But I do think you will see him reference that in the future, because it's Games Workshop. Like, it was very shocking to read Shadowsun's novel where this plotline is picked up again, because the original plotline is referenced in a book called The War of Secrets, where it's in that book where we get the tale from the Fourth Sphere expansion, where they talk about how the auxiliaries of the Tau Empire have inadvertently created this new god, and they respond by killing all of the auxiliaries. And at least in the Fourth Sphere expansion. And so that plotline, I thought that plotline would just be there. I didn't think they'd pick that up again. And it's, like I mentioned earlier, there are so many MacGuffins and characters that writers create that are then forgotten about and never referenced again. I thought that would be one of them. So then to read Shadowsun's novel, where Shadowsun directly interacts with Talvar, this kind of god of the greater good, that was pretty surprising. I didn't think that would happen. So that was pretty, I was pretty delighted to see that, and I hope it becomes a big thing in the setting. And it definitely, like, just as we talked about earlier with the Imperium, and it's good for the Imperium to have some sort of hope, Talvar existing is useful, because obviously she's nowhere near as powerful as Nurgle, but her powers are useful against Nurgle, and she does defeat a bunch of servants of Nurgle and tear them apart, basically, because she's not nothing. She's not to be sniffed at. She's definitely not going to go 1-to-1 with Khorne anytime soon, but she desires to take over the galaxy, and yeah, I mean, she's going to give it her best shot for sure. I think the really interesting development will be Amber King, because Box in the Void and Remembrancer, they got their stuff changed relatively quickly over time. I think, to be fair, I think Bricky maybe helped out with Remembrancer, because again, Remembrancer was just getting his appeals rejected. But with Amber King, that's a whole different thing, where you've got this company saying they have the rights to this copyrighted material, and if YouTube backs them, that's a huge, because there's two things that are wrong with their claim. The first is that I don't think they have access, that they don't own Games Workshop's material. Obviously, Games Workshop do. So Games Workshop would have to pay them to enforce this. But the other thing is that, if you've watched Amber King's videos, you'll know this. Amber King doesn't do like soul readings. Like, he's summarizing like 3 books in one in some of these, and so you can't summarize, you can't read 3 books in 3 hours. So he's summarizing a lot of what goes on in his own words, or he's leaving out certain plot lines, blah blah blah. And I think he said to me it's something like, because he has his scripts, it's something like 20% is, or 10% is readings, and then 90% is his own words. And so objectively speaking, that seems to be, well, I can't really say objective, but almost certainly, I'm very confident, at least, in the idea that he has not violated any kind of copyright law or any kind of free, what's it called, fair use policy, because the law in the UK is something like you can read up to 10% of a book, I think it is, something like that. You can have to check this online. It's like 10% of a book or a chapter at any time. And the fact that 10% of his video or is readings is definitely within the bounds of fair use. So there's really, if YouTube backs them, that would be a huge deal. That would change a lot of how I react. I would approach YouTube. It would change, I think, a lot of people's aspects. And I think a lot of us will probably end up getting in trouble because this company is clearly testing the waters with Amber King, and depending on how this goes, they will go further. Speaking of the Dark King, I'm fairly new to 40k. Are there 2 emperors now? The one on the throne who's feeding on psychers, and the part he sent to the warp to fight Horus? Great question. And yes, this is kind of like, in terms of like the 40k icebergs that people do, this is a pretty deep one. Yes, like this, there are 2 emperors really in Warhammer 40k, and they're created in the Horus Heresy and referenced in the Dawn of Fire series. So you have the part of the Emperor on the Golden Throne, the part that defeated Horus, definitely incredibly powerful. But really, the juicy stuff is the Star Child. So originally, it was just the Emperor's love, loyalty, and compassion that he cuts off from himself when he uses the last vestiges of his godhood after he gives up the Dark King power. When he gives up the power of the Dark King, he revives or sort of restores his friends. And then he cuts off this part of his soul, and Malkador, and as far as we know, only Malkador, sees it drift into the warp and glow as a child star. And Malkador tells us that that part of the Emperor's soul will grow as the Chaos Gods grow, i.e. worship of the Emperor will empower the Star Child. And then when we get to Warhammer 40k, modern 40k lore, it's an old storyline, but it's been brought up again recently, where we have this Star Child lore, where you've got servants of chaos, very afraid of the rise of the Star Child, and you've got imperial cults across the galaxy believing the Emperor is about to be reborn into a new body, and that's where the storyline is inevitably headed at some point. So we have the Emperor on the Golden Throne and the Star Child part of the Emperor, which is set to be reborn, but the Star Child part of the Emperor in the Dawn of Fire series is said to be the part of the Emperor that creates the Legion of the Damned, that creates Imperial Saints, that is protecting Rabute Gilliman, that is doing all kind of the cool stuff that we know and love about the Emperor. And as far as we know, the Emperor on the Golden Throne, I think, is just this like leftover part of him now that is being tortured and torn apart. And it's just a complete disaster. I'm an intellectual property attorney. Amber King is definitely fair use. Well, fair enough then. I can't imagine him breaking any fair use rules. But if YouTube, the problem with the fair use ruling, and I don't know if you're familiar with what YouTube's policy is, Marie, it's so like broadly written. It doesn't really say anything. And I remember speaking to someone at YouTube once, and I said something like, what would be like the limit? Like if I read like one page, would that be fine? And they were like, oh, I don't know. And I was like, hey, what if I did like one sentence? Obviously that's going to be fine. Because I said to them, I was like, I obviously want to err on the side of caution here. So what's like how do I play it safe? What should I do? And they couldn't even say like one sentence would be fine. They were just like, oh, well, it kind of depends and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's just nuts. If you can't say with any confidence that you can quote one sentence, what's the point? But I also don't really know how it works, because you have all of these YouTube channels that do React content, and they do that kind of exclusively. And like, there's definitely kind of React content that is very different, where they'll watch a video of like a political event or whatever and give their own breakdown, and that's obviously one thing. But you have these YouTube channels that just sort of sit in the bottom right corner and just go, yeah, no way, that's crazy. So yeah, I don't really know how that's allowed, but other stuff isn't. Everyone calls it AI because MLM is bad marketing. Yeah, I guess there was that sort of period where everything was getting called AI when it wasn't. I see where you're coming from. What if you don't monetize a full book reading? At that point, aren't you making money off their copyright? Yes, so you are right. And to be fair, that's why I don't want to comment on too many of the YouTube channels that have been in trouble, because I don't know the specifics. And yes, you are definitely right. If somebody read a Warhammer book out loud and posted that to YouTube, that would probably be crossing some sort of line. And I wouldn't be surprised if your channel gets in serious trouble then. But like Amber King, I think is best example to use, because you can see his videos still, and they are mostly his own work. They're mostly his opinion on how the book's played out and his thoughts on characters, etc. So yeah, if they deem that he's crossed the line, that is going to be tough to go back from that. It's going to be a big problem, and I'll probably change how I do a lot of stuff on the channel, to be honest. I think I'm obviously very safe because I do a lot of live streaming, and so I obviously I'm generally doing things off my memory or notes, but I still think it's the case that like I've done a lot of readings on the channel, and like you guys will watch live streams where I'll start off with a reading and explain why I really like it or whatever. But yeah, it's still like, how do I know what's fine and what's not is the thing. I hate that genuine content creators are being penalized when my YouTube feed is constantly trying to push me completely rubbish AI slop. So yeah, I mean, one of the things with that as well, and this is, I mentioned this earlier, where there are these YouTube channels where they will post my videos without any changes, right? There was this channel called the Sand Scrolls that YouTube notified me about the other day, and I requested it take down like about 15 videos, something like that, and yet still that channel is still up. So that channel was posting my content word for word. YouTube knows this because the system told me, and yet still that channel hasn't been taken down. So if YouTube is copyright striking, I think Grimdark narrating got taken down. I don't know how many strikes he had, but like, you know, he got taken down despite the fact he'd been making content for years. But this YouTube channel that was created like 3 weeks ago, that then posts a load of my content without any changes whatsoever, and I strike that and that doesn't get taken down, how is that fair? I don't understand how that works, because why are they not getting copyright strikes for copying my channel, like, you know, word for word? They even copy like the ads and stuff. They don't cut anything out. Very weird. But it's kind of an odd thing, because when I do get YouTube videos pushed to me for Warhammer, a lot of it is the AI stuff, and I'm like, given that Remembrancer got in trouble, I can't believe people can just post like a 2-hour video every single day, and like YouTube's fine with that. Like, obviously they're not, that's not genuine content. How do you feel about the AI channels that do absurd stuff like what if Goku entered 40k? I don't watch them, but things like that I don't really mind personally. Yes, I'm with you. Like that's, if it's a, yes, if there's obvious analysis going on in the video, then that actually doesn't bother me so much, because that's someone clearly having fun, and maybe it is the case the person behind that video was interested in making Warhammer content or sci-fi content or whatever, but they were very anxious about their own voice. I am less confident in that being the reality when I see that the channel was created 3 months ago. It has posted a new video almost every single day, and all of the videos are just AI art, and it's got, the latest video is called "Could the Emperor Beat Goku in a Fight?" and the video before that was 2 days ago, or the day before, because it's just not possible, right? This is what's going on. People were asking about channels earlier, where like I can't tell you for sure that these channels are using AI to write their scripts without watching them. If I watched them, I could tell you, but I can tell you that you can't do a video on the Emperor in a week if it's like 3 hours long, because it's not possible. You just haven't read those books. There is no way in hell. And certainly these channels that are like, oh yeah, so next week we're going to cover the Horus Heresy, it's just obvious crap. There's obviously no way. What about the AI voice channels like Imperial Iterator or whatever? That guy used the David Attenborough voice and changed it. So I'm not too familiar with his content, but so the first thing I would say is obviously he's not reading the lore. Obviously he's not, because of course he is posting new videos every day. Even if there's a team of them, there's no way they're reading this lore. It's obviously crap. But I have less of an issue with them in that they're more obvious. I don't think they particularly hide it very much. Like most of their thumbnails are AI, and the voice is very obviously AI. And so I don't think people are really being duped in watching that one so much. Do you know what I mean? Occasionally I'll see people say comments like, oh no, they spend a long time writing their scripts. I'm like, obviously they're not. Because they're not writing, and they like, you know, their Horus Heresy video had like a day before the last video. They didn't read the heresy in a day. Like, that obviously is not true. So I have less of an issue with them, but it's more the channels where they're trying to say that they're real and getting people to donate to them. You know, this Taylor Swift stuff because of Mrs. Sandman. Yeah, she's a big Swiftie. That is, I mean, 40k lore is deep, but Taylor Swift lore is pretty deep, man. It's dangerous in person, but it's extra bad when it's possible to lose this month's pay for getting out of bed. I mean, yes, that's true. And that's something with Remembrancer that was honestly awful, is that I believe he still lost his December pay. And like, this is his actual job. It's his actual job, and he lost December's pay, which is a big month for him, for all YouTube channels. And so like this is having a real impact on people who are doing this. And like, this isn't just like a game anymore where people are just kind of doing these things for fun. Most of the people that are doing these channels are churning it out all over the place as a grind to make as much money as possible. And I think yeah, we should be pushing back, really. For me, AI was a gateway to actual lore, to reading the book. See, I actually don't, I can appreciate that. I honestly can. And I do think, for example, like, and this is why I can't talk too much about everything. Like, for example, the music people were talking about, I don't know how musicians feel about that kind of thing, so I don't really have too much of an opinion on it. But at the very least, I can say that some people will lose jobs because of this, and that seems like a pretty awful thing for me. But for example, there are these times when people will take a Warhammer image and then the AI makes it animate. Like, that kind of thing, I imagine, is not so bad, because that's not really taking away anyone's jobs. It's just kind of like a cool AI thing that someone has used. But I'm not going to pretend I'm too informed on it. My thing for me personally is that you've got these AI lore channels now who are not reading books. They're just having the AI write a script, and then they read out the script, and then they post it, and then this has created such a market. Now YouTube has responded by taking down legitimate YouTube channels because of the AI. It has grown out of control, and so it's a bit of a pain in the ass already. Could it be possible that the company who's doing the copyright strikes own the Audible rights to release spoken books? It is. So I should say, yeah, I don't know if I made that clear, but I don't know, to clarify. So like, this company, whatever they're called, Mark Scan Enforcement, I was Googling them and I was trying to find out if they're legitimate. So for example, there was one time I saw on Twitter where there was this person who made, I don't know what the nature of their content was, but some sort of like Minecraft thing, and Mark Scan Enforcement had copyright struck them for who makes Minecraft again? Mojang, under Mojang, right? So they were saying that they had the rights to Mojang stuff, and they were enforcing Mojang's a copyright. And this person emailed Mojang and said, this person's doing this on your behalf, and Mojang actually managed to intervene and save this YouTube channel because they were pretending to have the rights to Mojang that they didn't have. However, I also saw some people saying that Warner Brothers, that this company have enforced Warner Brothers copyright. And I don't know if these were just comments online. So I don't know if they were wrong, or whether they misunderstood, or whether they were right. But I think this is the kind of thing businesses do nowadays, where they spend their time enforcing other companies' copyright. And I guess that's a legitimate business practice. But as far as I know, Games Workshop didn't hire them. And I'm pretty confident in saying that because Amber King emailed them. But I think what happens is, and this is my guess, I think they copyright strike channels, and then they email Games Workshop and say, would you like us to proceed with this? If so, this is our service, you can hire us. And then if the Games Workshop wants to go ahead, they can hire them. So I think that's probably how they're going about it. But as far as I know, they could be legitimate, but I'm just not sure. But there's the other side of it, which is that even if they are legitimately defending Games Workshop's copyright, Amber King hasn't violated their copyright because he has used their resources in the context of a review, etc., which is covered under fair use in the UK. So that, yeah, he hasn't broken any rules either way you look at it. And so if he gets in trouble for this, that's a pretty big change for YouTube and how we all kind of tackle law. But again, like, this is one of the things about some of the AI channels, is some of them have AI readings of Warhammer 40k lore, even if it's interspersed throughout videos. I'm like, that's getting a bit weird now. Like, you are, yeah, posting passages read by AI onto your channel. They all pretend to be real people, but they also pretend to be teams of people. And I'm like, oh really? So you just started a YouTube channel, despite the fact that you were new to Warhammer, because they say that, and then they're like, and I immediately hired a team. And you're like, oh really? That's how YouTube works, does it? You just hire a team of people. I don't have a team of people. Do you think Taylor Swift existed in the 40k timeline? Probably some sort of Slanesh worship, I reckon. Swift Warhammer crossover lore when? Yeah, interesting. See, the thing is, I would be really interested to know who knows more. Do I know more Taylor Swift lore, or does she know more Warhammer lore? Because obviously she hears me when I'm doing readings and stuff, and so she's obviously picked up little bits. Hi, Simon. Hope you're having a wonderful day. This is why I follow your channel. I love the community. You've answered a few of my questions. And no AI, it's real quality, and no AI, it's real quality and hard work. Yeah. I mean, well, this is like, it's interesting because a lot of people do like to say, well, some of the AI channels do put in work. And I'm sure that is possible some of the time. And some of the AI channels, for example, have done like little artistic things in the nature of their videos, which is fair. Like, and that's definitely a thing. But at the same time, if you are using AI to write your scripts and you are pretending to be a real person, that is not okay. We are your team. Thanks, Zeri. That sounds like a couple stream. Yeah, I don't know if she want to do that. If you ever hear a woman doing the other side of my narration, it's either someone in the Discord or it's my wife, and she hates doing any kind of narration. Like, sometimes I'll be like, you know, because obviously a lot of Warhammer 40k books, especially if they're Space Marine books, don't have too many women in them. So on occasion, I'm like, Dan, can you just read this one line? Can you just read it? And she really hates it. She really hates doing any kind of voice acting stuff. But yeah, you've probably heard her voice. The problem with generative AI is that there are text prediction systems, meaning most of the times they hallucinate because in their code, the predicted next word sentence doesn't need to be lore accurate. Yes, and that's actually where I think I can make quite an entertaining video talking about some of these AI channels, because like, they have hallucinated parts of the heresy, and that's objectively quite funny because some of them are quite ridiculous. There was one video on the Minotaurs that was talking about how the High Lords of Terra got wiped out. And I was like, that's amazing. Like, that doesn't, you just created that. Like, you just created some more. And then there was one talking about like it said like the Emperor used the Anathane blade to kill Horus. Of course he doesn't, because the Anathane blade had been destroyed years earlier. Like, it's just the whole book, it just sort of hallucinates things. And it's just kind of amazing really how it can do that. But it's the fact that they don't even like read it back. Like, most of this stuff you could probably catch if you just read it back, but they don't even do that. Like, I typically don't do politics stuff on this channel. I really try to avoid it. Like, I actually had a long debate with myself, kind of back and forth, about whether I would talk about this topic today, because I didn't like, I don't like to do drama as such on the channel, and that's not really something that I do. But I did think that ultimately I think this is probably going to end up affecting all of us, and this will probably end up affecting my channel. And at some point, some company is going to try and copyright strike me for something. And I thought it would probably make the most sense to do a live stream, at least making it clear that my support stands with like Amber King, etc. Because I don't want it to be the case that when my channel gets struck, people wouldn't support me because I didn't support them. And unfortunately, there's only so much we can do. But I think it does help if we can kind of direct community attention towards channels that are threat. I checked in late. Could you take a moment and give me a short synopsis on your thoughts on the AI lore channels. So yeah, the thing is, it's tough to give it too short of a synopsis because it depends on the channel, right? And it depends on what they're doing. The big problem I have are the channels that are pretending that they don't use AI to like write their lore videos and make their lore video. And this becomes like, I'm surprised that it works so well because a lot of it is quite obvious. As a first point, people who are making videos about the Emperor and then the heresy and then the Primarchs and then the Fall of Cadia each week, or in some cases each day, they are obviously not reading these books. It is not physically possible to do all of this work. And so a lot of the time, I'm surprised that they get away with it so much. But one of the things that I do believe is that if your channel is quite obviously AI and you're quite transparent about it, and you do, for example, genuinely kind of work quite hard to come up with your own lore, I actually don't mind that. Like we were talking earlier, there's a YouTube channel that does battle reports, and they're really well produced battle reports, but they use an AI voiceover probably because they just, they feel anxious about using their own voice. And that, I actually offered them to use my voice. I'm happy to do their voiceover because at the end of the day, it is their choice as to it's at the end of the day, like I respect that they actually do put in a lot of work. The problem that I have is that realistically, most of the AI channels are using AI to write their scripts. And in a lot of cases, convincing people that they're real and convincing people to give them money to support them. And I don't think that is okay whatsoever. Now, the reason I had to be quite specific is because not all AI things are the same. And there are, for example, channels that will use like the AI thing to animate pictures or things like that. And I don't think that is the same thing. But I do think there is 40K is rightfully, as a community, very protective over our artists. And I am very glad to see that Games Workshop, for example, aren't going to use AI art. Yes, they get high views, but I'd be very intrigued to know how much of each video people are actually watching. I hope most people will switch off as soon as they realize it's AI. Yeah, I mean, yeah, a lot of them, that is definitely a thing. And that's why a lot of the YouTube channels, weirdly, despite the fact I called my channel Sandman of Terra, like the reason I called my channel Sandman was because of a nickname. My last name is Sandylands, so Sandman came from that. And despite the fact that I called it that, I haven't done too much of like 40K sleep lore, lore to sleep to, etc., which is obviously quite a popular genre. And that stuff does pretty well, and one of the reasons is because it does auto play afterwards, so it plays. You get like 8 hours of watching for every view, which is quite fascinating. Hopefully the AI, you're the best YouTube channel in the IP, in my opinion. Thank you. I mean, I like that I get to do this. This is sort of a unique thing that I think my channel gets to do, yeah, it's a real privilege. Hopefully this AI spam won't hurt channels like yours. I'm worried it may take over YouTube as a whole. I think eventually they'll probably get a handle on it, or people will get bored of it, or at the very least that people will find a balance. But on the other hand, like live streaming is across YouTube is becoming more popular. So maybe I'm early on the curve and terms of the type of content. Like, for example, I mentioned earlier, like one of the videos I'm putting out this week is a clip from a live stream with some stuff I've then added in, and then I'm going to post that as a video. And that's quite a common way for YouTubers to make videos, but I don't think Warhammer people really do it. So it's an interesting experiment for me to see how that works. My big problem with tech bros is that AI should not be a monopoly and should be the pillar which humanity rises from survival to truly living en masse, but they be greedy and egotistical and too proud. See, one of the things that's interesting about that opinion is that, like, this is debate we have quite often in Europe. So if you're American, you might have noticed you probably don't buy too many things from like big European companies, and there's a reason for that. We don't really make big companies, and especially in like the scale that like the Americans do or the Chinese do. And one of the reasons for that, they say, is because we sort of police ourselves out of making them. And AI is kind of the best example where in the European Union, which the UK isn't part of anymore, but generally speaking, have similar ideas. There are so many guidelines around AI technology, but we don't have any major AI companies in the EU. So the question becomes, do you keep the rigid structures in place that we have and risk just everything being dominated by the Americans or Chinese or whoever? or maybe lessen the restrictions and at least have some control over them. So yeah, it's a tough one, but it's yeah, it's sort of a weird catch-22 there. A quick reminder for you, it's midnight. Yes, that's true. Yes. I'll answer the questions and I head off. Doing what you love instead of what the algorithm, it will sustain you for long enough to reach success. Consistency is key. Yes, so that's definitely true. There's definitely some sacrifices you should make, like in terms of if you can change the nature of your videos to get a much wider reach, that would make sense. But you are definitely right in that, for example, I am eternally shocked that like a lot of, when I talk about like how some of the YouTubers don't, like, it's quite obvious to me they don't read the lore. The interesting thing about that is I also think at that point, the entire process must become a chore, right? Like I think that my thing is like, I will read the book and then talk about it. If I didn't want to read the book, that's just work. I'm just researching a topic to talk about. And I think that at a certain point, you should do what you love. And I would definitely make less money, not enough money to live. But I would definitely make less money than just doing it. And I think part of that, for example, on this channel is I haven't done too many beginners videos because to me, I find it quite dull to continuously do who are the Ultramarines, who are the White Scars. And the truth is that most of these YouTubers are just going to like, use the wiki and a couple of clips off of Reddit, whatever, and go from there. But I would get quite bored of doing that. So I don't really do it, despite the fact that those typically do the best. Thanks, guys. I will say I've never actually had that kind of comment like that before on the channel. So I'm happy people like my response. But yeah, it sort of threw me. Because sometimes I'm answering a question, I see that and I'm just like, oh, fucking hell. But yeah, weirdly, I don't get that kind of comment very often. All right, we'll do one more question and I'll sign off. Do you think the King in Yellow storyline, had to be a King in Yellow question, will eventually incorporate some of the Eldritch horror type elements that the name originally comes from? Good question. I keep meaning to read into it. And the truth is I haven't read much Lovecraftian lore whatsoever. So I don't really know enough about it. I believe, sorry chat if this is wrong, I believe in the original Lovecraftian lore, at least the comment said this, something like if you know the name you'll die or something like that. Is that right? Or if you know the name something happens to you. Yeah, so that aspect of him, I guess, is coming true because the fact that you know the existence of Constantine Valdor is incredibly dangerous. But for example, I haven't done a video on this, but one of the aspects of the King in Yellow that is discussed in the book is the numbers around the King in Yellow. And there's even this is where the theorizing that, oh, perhaps the King in Yellow is one of the lost Primarchs or something like that, because he's obsessed with the number, he's obsessed with number 8. He's got 8 generals. He's got obsessed with the number 119, I think it is, and the number of 11 could be one of the lost Primarchs. 11 minus 9 is 2. Like, there's things like that they literally talk about in the novel. They're theorizing this stuff. So perhaps some of that has a reference in the old Lovecraftian lore. I think the King in Yellow is just a book, isn't it, in and of itself? Sorry, yes. All right, Snacks, I see you. Thank you for joining the channel. I'll answer your question as well. The question before you head off. Oh, sorry, you haven't posted it yet. All right, post it in chat and I'll make sure I answer it. Thank you for all the advice. If I ever figure out how to get into the members Discord, would you be willing to give recommendations on a mic and camera? Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, if you just message me on Discord, yeah, there should be a link. There should be a link below. Members Discord. There should be a link, and you can just add me if you can't get into it. But yes, I can tell you what I have. It's not my area, but I can tell you what works for me, and you can at the very least see the quality that I can be able to create, and I can teach you how to make that. I typically try, I think the ones that I use are pretty commonly used, so yeah, it should be. All things said, Sandman's voice make an awesome AI voice. I get a lot of comments assuming that I'm AI, and very flatteringly, I actually get quite a lot of comments asking, is this Henry Cavill's AI voice? Which I'm like, no, I just look like him, but this is my own voice. You need to let me give you a rundown on Concosa, the inevitable city King in Yellow and the whole thing, there are a lot of parallels. Interesting. Yes. Yes, definitely. Yeah, message me on Discord or Instagram, mate. Do that. Just knowing his identity drives people crazy. Interesting. I mean, that would be a fascinating thing if they brought that over. So there was now a time pressure on Beckwin and Eisenhorn that they had to act upon this information, or the existence of the name Constantine Valdor within their brains will drive them mad. Something like that. That would be awesome. Anyway, yeah, Snacks. Very important question. Which Great Crusade era Primarch would have the high score in the hit 2013 app Flappy Bird? Okay, I think Perturabo is going to be the one to like break his phone. Who would have the best reaction? I would guess Fulgrim or the Khan. I'm going to guess it's going to be about speed, and I reckon it would be one of those two. Lovecraft did not invent the King in Yellow. Oh, there you go. I'm wrong already. I apologize. All right, I think that was your question. If I missed your other questions, next, put it in the comments or in the community, and I'll get. Anyway, take care, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I will leave this on the channel. You can watch it. It'll be unlisted, but you can still watch it. I'll be posting a video later this week, so stay tuned. Take care, all. Thanks for watching this stream. If you could help me appease YouTube's machine spirit by liking and subscribing, I would greatly appreciate it. If you couldn't make the stream live but want to ask me a question anyway, consider posting it in our community tab and I'll answer it next time. To support the channel, click the join button below, which will give you access to more content, and you can drop into the members Discord where all the coolest Terrans hang out, away from the watchful eyes of the Inquisition. Thanks for joining me, and until next time, I wait for you and I forgive you. Good night.